America's pastime has now recently formed into America's present time. That is the sport of baseball, the diamond, the 9-inning game, 9 batters, 1 pitcher on the rubber. And you know what? It brings a smile to my face because as anyone that knows me knows that baseball is a very near and dear sport to one RT's heart. It really is. It always has been. It always will be. I love the game. I loved playing the game. I miss playing the game. I want to get back into playing the game. I've told myself that these last few years. Dust off the old baseball spikes. Put the spikes back on. Put the baseball pants back on. Get into the batting cage a little bit more. But I've taken up golf so much that I don't want to hurt my golf swing. I don't want to hurt my golf game, really. And I do feel that baseball at this point right now in my life would actually hurt my golf game. I'm at a point now where I got to prioritize my golf game over my baseball game, which, man, if you would have told a 16-year-old Ryan Thomas or a 17-year-old Ryan Thomas that would be the case for me at the age of 31, he would have said, you're lying. He's playing for the Boston Red Sox, playing center field at Fenway on every fourth night and, hitting dingers, hitting slapping doubles off the monster. Those were my dreams in terms of my athletic prowess, but obviously short-lived, safe to say. But neither here nor there. You find yourself finding different avenues and how you can contribute to sport and how you can put yourself out there, and this is definitely one of them. Having a podcast since 2015 has allowed me that opportunity. And diving into the ebbs and flows of every sport, right now I want to say plainly that I'm extremely happy that baseball is at the point that it's at right here, right now. There were rule changes that were justified by Commissioner Rob Manfred, and they were met with 50% criticism, 50% support. We didn't know what type of game we'd be walking into, and I said it when it happened, as far as this whole pitch clock thing, that what would happen, the detractors of the pitch clock, the naysayers of the pitch clock, would have to conform, because at the end of the day, those that are that loud about something are those that care that much more about something that they're not going anywhere. So even the harshest critics of the pitch clock, they're not leaving baseball. They're here to stay. That's why they care so much, is because they know that. They know that they're here to stay. And then anyone that supported it, maybe a more modern fan, maybe someone from my generation or the new generation, they feel that, you know what, whatever, change is good, right? That's kind of the consensus thought among the new fans. And I think right now that the star power of baseball is at an all-time high. And I can go down the list of players, but we'll start off with Shohei Ohtani. Shohei Ohtani is one of the greatest sensations that I've ever watched. And I really want to put this in perspective for the old guard, the last generation or prior to that. It's really important for me to connect with each demographic that tunes into my show, whether they be in their 50s, 70s, or 80s. My dad got to see 3 phenomenons. 3. Bo Jackson, Michael Jordan, and Mike Tyson. It's probably as good as it gets, as well as Wayne Gretzky in the sport of hockey. But I've had the chance, in retrospect, to see equal phenomenons in their own way, debatably. Tiger Woods, LeBron James, mainly those two, As well, you could say Sidney Crosby, Alexander Ovechkin, Connor McDavid. In hockey, you could say in boxing, Floyd Mayweather. You could say in mixed martial arts, the sport of mixed martial arts, as I've alluded to, is a phenomenon that I've been able to witness throughout the entirety of my lifetime, which is pretty amazing. But baseball has always been that constant. Baseball's always found a way to continue to stay relevant despite the damage that has been done to itself, by itself, from within itself. Over the years, the steroid scandal, over the years, the marketing prices in terms of tickets. Tickets are more expensive now than they've ever been. Players are making more money than they've ever been. The owners are making more money than they've ever been. And yet, people are still finding a way to go to the ballpark on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And maybe they're not doing so in Oakland, but they're definitely doing so in the larger parks with larger fan bases, larger, history, things of that nature. As Oakland's got one foot out the door prior to their move to Vegas, right? That's pretty well known. But individual player star power right now is impeccable. I really feel right now, maybe in the last 20 years, we haven't seen young star power quite like this. And I also saw Derek Jeter. I also saw David Ortiz. I also saw Alex Rodriguez. I also saw Albert Pujols, Miguel Cabrera. I mean, I could go on about the phenoms that I have seen over the course of, my lifetime. Ken Griffey Jr. in baseball. But Shohei Ohtani is different. This is a guy that's doing things that nobody has done since Babe Ruth in an era that is arguably the best era physically of what these players, pitchers, and or batters are able to do. Throwing it consistently 99 miles an hour, hitting 50, 60 home runs, depending on who you are. Aaron Judge, potentially Shohei Ohtani, able to do that himself. Pete Alonso, another power slugger. Vlad Guerrero Jr. I mean, I could go on, and we'll start off with Shohei, in that Shohei Ohtani is a sensational talent. He's a two-way player. He pitches, he hits, one of the best pitchers in the game, one of the best hitters in the game, and is an electrifying, charismatic persona out on that baseball field and off of it. Despite the language barrier, he's still that guy. Much like Ichiro was once upon a time, but Ichiro playing right field, hitting leadoff, Shohei hitting cleanup, pitching on every fifth day, and hitting dingers every day, essentially. So there's really nobody like him, ever, and that I've ever seen, outside of Babe Ruth, who pitched and then hit and everything. We know that, right? So Shohei's at a point where the star power is going to keep climbing no matter what uniform he's wearing. The only thing that's left to further push that star power is a change in uniform. That attracts new eyes to Shohei that weren't there before, and it also could potentially attract new eyes to baseball that weren't there before. Both a win-win for baseball and a win-win for Shohei, of course, but that can really range in terms of the outcome, whether that is a high number of eyeballs or a medium number of eyeballs or a low number of eyeballs, depending on where he goes. And this MLB trade deadline in a couple weeks is essential to answering that question, whether he will even be traded or not, or will the Anaheim Angels or LA Angels, decide to extend him. Either way, Shohei Ohtani's one of the best things that's happened to baseball in a extremely long time. So we talk about him first and foremost. Next, you have a player in Seattle by the name of Julio Rodriguez, who had a breakout campaign in 2022, put the Seattle Mariners on his back. It was the first time the Seattle Mariners had really been relevant in quite some time, and dare I say it, will continue to be relevant at this point in their history, as long as 44 for the Seattle Mariners is playing really, really well. J-Rod, as I like to call him, of course, Julio Rodriguez. Now, he signed that long-term extension. Rodriguez did. We know he's going to be in Seattle. We know he's going to be a great player for quite some time. Home run derby this year, 41 home runs in the opening round. Moonshots, left field, right field, center field. A true phenom in every sense of the word to burst onto the scene in his rookie year, and essentially it was one of the most dominant rookie of the year performances I had ever seen. Maybe that the game has ever seen. Then you have the prodigy in Vlad Guerrero Jr., who's playing in a Canadian market, much like his dad did with the long-gone Montreal Expos. Vlad Guerrero Jr. playing in Toronto, hitting towering shots in the Rogers Center, whether the roof is open or closed, and really has rounded out his game, I think, as a first baseman, playing DH, was playing third for a little bit too, still does play third a little bit too, but honestly more first baseman than third now, and I think that's for the better. Rafael Devers, my guy for the Boston Red Sox, one of the most underrated pure hitters in the game, always hits for contact, always hits, period. Hits a lot. Doubles off the monster, home runs. And then you have the guy that's not in the lineup right now, that's not out there for the New York Yankees, Aaron Judge, who I think is as towering a presence in the sport as he is in height. Anytime he steps into the batter's box, we're all holding our breath, wondering if we're going to see an Aaron Judge moonshot, and most of the time we do. And you take the fanhood aside, I have an easier time taking the fanhood aside for sports now than I ever have. Really, since I started this show, I'm able to pull the curtain back and just look at the sport and what it represents and the players that are within it, whether it be baseball, football, mixed martial arts, boxing, hockey. Just recognizing great talent when you see it. And man, Aaron Judge is a real special player. I mentioned Pete Alonso as well. You got to mention him. Trey Turner is one of the fastest men I've ever seen on the base paths. We're at a point right now where baseball has just so many talented players. And I think the boat was being missed on that for quite some time. Dare I forget to even mention Ronald Acuna of the Atlanta Braves, who is putting on a campaign this year that might go down in history as the greatest single season of all time. With the stolen bases numbers, with the home run numbers, could be the first 40 for 40 player, 40 home runs, 40 stolen bases player since Alfonso Soriano did it in the early to mid 2000s. You also have Juan Soto. You also still have Mookie Betts. You also still have Yordan Alvarez. And you also have, once again, injured Mike Trout. But, man, that is a interesting topic as well. Is Mike Trout in the twilight of his prime? Is this the part of Mike Trout's career where he starts to see himself become more injured and not out there as much? Is this the part where we see Mike Trout kind of take that back step? And yet he spent the last 10 years playing in L.A., not for the Dodgers, but for the Angels. What does that look like in the near future? I think that's the biggest topic right now surrounding the game, is not only what's going to happen with Shohei, but what's going to happen with Mike Trout. If Shohei Ohtani is going to be moved, Mike Trout should be moved as well. I'll say that right now. And in terms of addressing that, if I'm the GM of the Angels, I'm moving both Shohei as well as Trout, and I'm moving on. I'm starting over. It didn't work. Those guys were here. We move on. We trade them both in separate trades. What does a trade for Ohtani look like? It includes a lot. It would include probably 10 prospects in tiers, Major League ready players, 2 to 3, AAA players that could eventually be major leaguers, probably 3 to 4, couple double-A prospects as well, maybe some kickers thrown in there. You know what I mean? That's the return that I expect for Ohtani. For Trout, could potentially be a little bit less than that because he has had those injuries. But, man, I'm really excited about where baseball is at. And the last and final prospect slash superstar prospect, whatever word you want to use, that I'm going to bring up is Elly De La Cruz of the Cincinnati Reds. The Cincinnati Reds have 3 guys that they've brought up: Encarnacion Strand, McLean, Elly De La Cruz, as well as the pitcher Andrew Abbott. 4 guys in their core 4, you could call it, through their farm system, groomed, that I think are very, very good players that could easily help the Reds become a consistent playoff team in the future, if not this year. And that's exciting. Hunter Green as well, very electrifying pitcher. He hasn't been out there in quite some time, but when he is, he can throw gas. I really like what they have in terms of their young talent. But Elly De La Cruz, this is a guy that he's helped the Reds become a 10 games over 500 team and has led them in every step of the way. The swagger, the moxie, the edge to the Reds is a completely different look based upon what we know very well has been a rough go of it for quite some time for the Cincinnati Reds. So I've never been more confident in the state of baseball as far as the superstars that the sport has. And I know for a fact these players will only continue to get better. In the case of De La Cruz, Bo Bichette, as well as Vlad Jr., Julio Rodriguez, Shohei, Judge. It's just astonishing the amount of young superstar talent that there is. And you look at the Baltimore Orioles, they got a lot of it too. Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday coming up, Colton Cowser already up. I think that there are so many players that are right on the precipice of being called up that could really be some of the best players in the game in the next 3 to 4 years. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take. Take care.